This is just some review and extension of the things that we talked about in class this week. We're going to start with a fast overview of plotting our functions. Then we'll review combination numbers, binomial distributions, normal distributions, and along the way we'll also discuss center and center of spread of distributions. So first things first, reviewing some plotting. Remember that we use our libraries to do this, so I'll go ahead and import our three kind of standard libraries here, which is matplotlib, .pyplot as PLT, numpy as NP, and pandas as PD for tables. Okay, and we were able to define a function with this def, then we called it usually f of x, and asked it to do something to this input. For example, return the square of that. In order to plot this, we needed to define either one or, well, many values of x. We use numpy to do that, this Linspace method, and here we can define a number of values between -3 and 3, and we'll say make 1,000 values. And to plot it, we say PLT, that was our plotting library, .plot x, comma, f of x. And we get our plot. Also remember, besides for defining a domain, if we have funny numbers or non-decimal numbers or easily accessible numbers like square roots, sines and cosines, exponents and logarithms and such, that's when we're also going to use numpy. So let's go ahead and define a square root function. I'll call that s of x. That can return. And so I have to use numpy and the square root function. We'll define the sine of x, return numpy sine, and we can define e, and we will return np dot e. Well, let's say e to the x. All right, and we can still, again, if we have a domain defined, we could plot all of these on that same domain. So x s of x, x sine of x, and x e of x. Okay, and we get all three of those plotted on the same set of axes. You notice that our square root is this blue line. We don't see it over here on the left because there's no negative square roots don't exist, right? If we wanted to make these on different plots, just a little extra, we can use what are called subplots. And see this help, it tells you, you can say how many rows and how many columns you want to make. So I'm going to make 1 row and 3 columns here. And then this axis is what we plot to. So rather than doing this, we have ax. Those are our different axes. And since I made a 1/3 plot, there's 3 of them. This is, I'm going to plot that square root to the first. I'll plot the sine to the second, and I will plot the e to the x to the third. All right, and then we get 3 different plots. If you want to suppress this text, it's with a colon, and if you want to change the figure size, It's width by height, and that's too big. Okay, and you see that we're getting a warning about the square root here, or I'm sorry, the square root here, because those negative values don't make sense there, but that's okay. Last bit was if we wanted to make a table of values, we could do a similar thing. We have all of those defined, and we could say what x was, what s of x is, what the sign of x is, and what e to the x is. And what we would say just e to the x. All right, and then we have a big table of values. So I could say functions. Yep, and as expected, we have no values there at the negatives for the square roots. Okay, so just a quick review on plotting, making tables, and a little bit of additional functionality in terms of subplots.